Welcome to the deep dive. Today, we're taking you on a trip to Nigeria. Things are getting pretty interesting over there. We've got two news articles, both from Nigerian publications, about alleged terrorism financing, fraud.
And a ton of frozen bank accounts.
Oh, wow. Sounds like we're about to unravel a financial thriller.
It definitely has that vibe. You've got court freezes 24 bank accounts over alleged terrorism financing. That's from Punch and G. And 52.9-meter fraud. Court grants EFCC approval to freeze 67 bank accounts from Business Day NG. So you're probably wondering, what exactly are we diving into today? Well, we're going to untangle these cases, see how authorities combat financial crimes, and explore what this all means for, you and me, everyday people just trying to navigate the financial world.
It's crazy. These cases really highlight the challenges of navigating a world where crime is evolving as quickly as technology. Exactly. And we're going to see that firsthand as we dig into these articles. We'll even get into how cryptocurrency is playing a role, especially in that first case from Punch Yi, and what that means for investigators. But first, let's introduce a key player you'll hear a lot about, the Economic and Financial Crimes Commission, or EFCC. They're the ones investigating these cases in Nigeria. Think of them as the financial detectives on the scene.
I see. It's fascinating how they have to adapt their techniques to tackle these increasingly complex crimes.
Absolutely. Now, are you ready to jump into that first case from Punch AG?
Let's do it. I'm curious to see how this one unfolds.
Okay, so picture this. 24 bank accounts, all frozen, by the Federal High Court in Abuja, because the EFCC suspects they're connected to something much bigger: terrorism financing.
Wow. Now that's what I call a high-stakes investigation.
Right. And the details are pretty gripping. The accounts belong to a man named Lawrence Lucky Aromoso, who's under investigation for kidnapping. But that's just the tip of the iceberg.
What's interesting to me is it's not just about the money. This case involves real people and their safety.
You're absolutely right. That's what makes this story so compelling. An EFCC investigator named Mohammed Khalil, who's working directly with National Security Advisor Nuhu Ribadu, filed an affidavit. And it's pretty chilling. It describes how senior operatives in the NSA's office were being blackmailed and threatened by a syndicate.
That's a bold move, targeting people in such high-powered positions.
It definitely shows the audacity of this group. They were demanding ransoms, threatening to abduct family members, and even knew details about their targets' families and their movements. It's a level of intrusion that would make anyone feel incredibly vulnerable.
Yeah. It's a chilling reminder of the human cost of these crimes. These aren't just abstract financial transactions. They have real-world consequences that ripple through people's lives.
Exactly. And this affidavit connects those threats directly to the frozen accounts. It's like following a trail of breadcrumbs. But instead of leading to a delicious treat, they lead to potential acts of terror.
I'm curious about the mention of cryptocurrency in this case. It seems like that would add a whole new layer of complexity to the investigation.
You're spot on. The article says intelligence suggests the funds were being exchanged through cryptocurrency platforms, potentially to finance terrorist activities. Think about it. Trying to trace digital money, moving through the vast world of the internet. It's like finding a needle in a digital haystack.
And it underscores how traditional investigative methods might not be enough anymore. They need to be adapted to the digital age.
That's exactly the challenge investigators are facing, not just in Nigeria, but globally. Now, in this case, Justice Amikan White granted the EFCC's request to freeze the accounts for 90 days. That gives them time to really dig deep, follow the money trail, and hopefully build a strong case.
It's a race against time for the investigators.
Absolutely. And with cryptocurrency in the mix, it's a race that's even more challenging. But, the second case we're diving into from Business Day NG is intriguing for a whole different reason. This one centers around a massive fraud. And it seems like the investigators had to become financial puzzle masters to unravel it.
I'm ready to see how they connected the dots.
Yeah.
It really is. It's amazing how these cases highlight the global nature of financial crime. It's not just a local issue anymore.
You're absolutely right. Criminals can move money across borders with incredible speed these days, especially with the rise of cryptocurrency. It's a whole new level of complexity for investigators.
And that's where international cooperation becomes absolutely crucial. Imagine trying to track a transaction that jumps from Nigeria to Switzerland to the Cayman Islands, all within a matter of hours. It takes a coordinated global effort to stay ahead of these criminals.
It's like a global game of financial hide and seek, and the stakes are incredibly high.
Exactly. And the implications go far beyond just catching the bad guys. These cases raise serious questions about the security and accountability of financial systems. not just in Nigeria, but worldwide.
That's a great point.
Yeah.
When we hear about these large-scale investigations, it's easy to focus on the numbers and the intricate details, but we can't forget about the human impact, both for the victims and those accused.
It's a delicate balance, isn't it? Authorities need to act swiftly to prevent the loss of funds, but they also have to ensure the process is fair and protects individual rights. Imagine having your bank account frozen, unable to access your own money, even if you're ultimately found innocent.
That would be incredibly disruptive. It makes you think about the potential unintended consequences of these aggressive actions, even if they're done with the best intentions.
Exactly. It raises some important questions. Are there enough safeguards in place to prevent abuse of these powers? What recourse do individuals have if they believe they've been wrongly targeted? These are complex issues with no easy answers.
Yeah, it really is fascinating and a little bit unsettling to think about the ripple effects of these cases. But before we go too far down that rabbit hole, let's get back to that second case from Business Day NG. We were just about to unpack how investigators cracked the code of this alleged fraud.
Okay, let's see what we've got. We know there are 67 frozen accounts and a whopping 52.9 million naira allegedly stolen. What else caught your eye?
Well, this case really showcases the meticulous work of the EFCC investigator, Akina Chukwueze. He basically had to become a financial detective, tracing the flow of money through a labyrinth of accounts and banks. It's like piecing together a giant puzzle, only with millions of naira at stake.
Right, and that's what makes investigating financial crime so challenging. It's not always about a smoking gun. It's about following the money trail, connecting the dots, and building a solid case piece by piece.
The article mentions a company called ADSEL, whose corporate naira account was compromised, leading to the theft of 50 million naira. That money was quickly transferred to an account owned by Taiwo Abubakar Oluwajuwon and his company, Heezy Enterprises. But from there, it gets even more complicated.
It sounds like a classic case of money laundering, trying to obscure the origin of the funds and make them untraceable.
Exactly. And that's where Chuckwaze's detective work comes in. He was able to track how the money was distributed across multiple accounts, involving individuals and companies, and a whole range of banks. From traditional institutions to fintech companies, it really shows how interconnected the financial system has become.
And that interconnectedness is a double-edged sword. On the one hand, it allows for faster, more efficient transactions, but on the other, it creates more opportunities for criminals to exploit vulnerabilities and move money quickly and discreetly across borders.
As we're talking about these two cases, I'm noticing some interesting parallels. Both involve the EFCC taking a proactive approach, using court orders to freeze accounts before the money disappears.
Right, and they both involve that 90-day freeze, giving investigators that crucial window to build their case. It's like they're saying, time out, let's pause the game and see what's really going on here.
It really highlights the importance of being able to trace the flow of money in both cases. It's the key to unlocking the truth.
Absolutely. And that's where things get really interesting, especially with the rise of cryptocurrency. It's changing the game for investigators. Traditional tracing methods just aren't enough anymore.
So what does all this mean for Nigeria's financial system as a whole? These cases seem to suggest there might be vulnerabilities that need addressing.
They definitely raise questions about the overall security of the system. But they also show that Nigerian authorities are taking financial crime seriously and are actively working to combat it. It's a constant battle to stay ahead of the curve, especially in a world where technology is evolving so rapidly.
It's reassuring to see them taking action. But it does make you wonder, are these just isolated incidents or are they indicative of a larger problem?
That's the millionaire question, isn't it? And it's one that has implications far beyond Nigeria's borders. We're living in a globalized world, and financial crime is a global issue. What happens in one country can easily have ripple effects across the entire system.
So what can individuals do to protect themselves in this increasingly complex financial landscape? It all seems so overwhelming.
It's really about being informed and aware. The more you understand about how financial systems work and the risks involved, the better equipped you'll be to protect yourself. Simple things like being cautious about sharing personal and financial information online, being wary of suspicious emails or phone calls, and regularly monitoring your bank accounts can make a big difference.
It's amazing how sophisticated these scams have become. I've even seen some that look incredibly legitimate.
It's true, the criminals are getting smarter all the time. That's why vigilance is key. If something seems off, trust your instincts. Don't be afraid to ask questions or report suspicious activity to your bank or the authorities.
It's better to be safe than sorry. These deep dives into financial crime, always leave me with a mix of fascination and concern. It's like peeking behind the curtain of a world that's both intriguing and a little bit frightening.
It's a world that's constantly evolving, and the challenges are only going to get more complex as technology advances, but knowledge is power. And the more we understand about the intricacies of financial crime, the better prepared we'll be to navigate this ever-changing landscape.
It really is a constant arms race, isn't it, as technology advances? So do the methods criminals use to exploit it.
You hit the nail on the head. It's a game of cat and mouse on a global scale. And that's why we can't just sit back and assume someone else is taking care of it. We all have a role to play in protecting ourselves and the financial system as a whole.
So, as we wrap up our deep dive into these frozen accounts and allegations of terrorism, financing, and fraud, what are your final thoughts? What should our listeners take away from this?
Wow. I think the biggest takeaway is that financial crime is a real and present danger. It's not something that just happens to other people or in far-off lands. It can impact anyone, anywhere. And it's only going to become more complex as our world becomes increasingly digital.
That's a sobering thought.
Then,
It's not all doom and gloom, is it? There are things we can do to protect ourselves.
absolutely. Knowledge is power. By understanding the risks, taking precautions, and being vigilant, we can all contribute to making the financial system more secure. It's about being proactive, not reactive.
So it's not just about relying on the authorities to catch the bad guys. It's about being informed and empowered as individuals.
Exactly. Think of it as a shared responsibility. We need to be partners in this fight against financial crime.
And speaking of responsibility, I can't help but think about the delicate balance between security and privacy in our efforts to protect the system. Are we also at risk of sacrificing individual liberties?
That's a crucial question, and one that we as a society need to grapple with. How much privacy are we willing to give up in the name of security? It's a complex issue with no easy answers.
It's a bit of a paradox, isn't it? We want to be safe, but we also value our freedom. Finding that balance is key.
Absolutely. And it's a conversation that needs to happen on a global scale. We can't just assume that the solutions implemented in one country will work for everyone.
These cases from Nigeria really highlight how interconnected the world has become. What happens in one corner of the globe can have ripple effects everywhere.
That's why international cooperation is so crucial. We need to work together to develop solutions that protect both our security and our freedoms.
Well, this has been a fascinating and thought-provoking deep dive. We've explored the intricate world of financial crime, the challenges faced by investigators, and the implications for individuals and the global financial system.
I always enjoy these dives. They're a great reminder that staying informed and engaged is crucial. The world is constantly evolving, and so are the threats we face.
And to our listeners, we encourage you to continue exploring these topics, ask questions, stay curious, and be vigilant in protecting yourselves and your financial well-being. After all, knowledge is our most powerful weapon in the fight against financial crime.
Well said. Until next time, happy diving.